Busy Tonight was a talk show hosted by Busy Phillips on the E! Network, and even despite its cancellation, it still manages to make a lot of headlines. And I'm Tony Ruiz from Gold Derby with Busy Phillips. And Busy, looking at the show now, do you feel like you accomplished what you set out to do when you started this show?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think in so many ways the show is insanely successful and achieved that in a really short period of time. And, I knew that what we wanted to do was build a show that for late night that doesn't exist anywhere else. I wanted it to be sort of imbued with a lot of like a sense of fun and and a lightness to it. And at the same time, I was always aware and wanted us to have sort of a, undertone of a kind of subversive feminist messaging to get in there. But ultimately, and one of the pitches of the show when we were coming up with it is a thing that we have seen people say about the show without anyone knowing that's what we were trying to put forth, which was that we wanted it to be like a Mr. Rogers for grown-ups right before bed, or like mixed with like a Pee-wee's Playhouse vibe with a little bit of a Graham Norton interview feel and like a splash of Oprah, and then on top of all of that, me. So yeah, I think we really managed to pull that off. And I think that the shows, especially over the last month and a half, 2 months, have gotten so strong, and the shows we really found our footing. And I think that is to be, especially when you're dealing with a show like this, it should be expected that it's going to take longer than it would a scripted show or another kind of show to really figure out the nuance and like how to walk the lines and where the strengths are. And our learning curve, I have to say, was, real fast, and we just figured it out really quickly. So I'm super proud of all of that.
So in that time frame, you talk about that learning curve. What were some things that you just instantly felt like, okay, we tried this in the beginning, maybe that's not the way to go? What were some of the changes that you made as you navigated the show?
Well, we had thought, there was a suggestion. Look, here's what I'm going to say, Tony. I think that especially in television, I think a lot of times the thing that people, not just viewers, but also executives and people in charge, I think the thing that they kind of a lot of times go back to is a familiarity. And everybody likes to be an expert, right? It's like, why you can watch Law and Order 4,000 times, different episodes, but you always you figure out who's the killer and you feel really smart when you do that, but you're like, honey, you're watching the same fucking show over and over again. So I think that there was, especially in the beginning, and you have a lot of people who want to have their input seen and heard. And so I think, a lot of people had liked the idea of like a panel show, and I had never wanted to do a panel show, but that was sort of the impetus behind us trying out having the writers in the front row when we first started the show. And some people really did love that, because that's like a comforting thing for them. They're like, oh, I understand what this is. There's a person, there are people that she's talking to, and they maybe say funny things about the things they're talking about. But it just didn't really quite work for us, and through no fault of the ladies who were my writers, but it just wasn't tonally sort of like what we were going for. And the truth is, I think, I don't know if I had said this to someone that was related to someone at the network. In the case of my show and like my connection with my audience, it's always been very personal. So they don't want to see me interacting with other people. They want me to interact with them directly to the camera, as they had gotten so comfortable watching me on Instagram do for a few years. So we had tried out the writers in the front. That didn't seem to really work. I kept saying like I wanted the cameras to move in closer. We did that. We moved. Liz Plonka, our director, was always trying to figure out how to get it closer in. The interviews themselves got better for a few reasons. I mean, I'd never done this before. I enjoyed talking to people, but I'd never interviewed people. And that was a learning curve with my producers as well, in terms of the kinds of things that we wanted to talk to people about and the questions that we wanted to ask. And then beyond that, how I was going to ask them. Should I be holding cards? Should I be looking at should they be in the prompter? I mean, these are all sort of like logistical things that I never, obviously had no idea. Like I knew nothing about going into this show. I'm trying to think if there are some other things that we were flexible on. A lot of times, I mean, like really like my hill to die on. I know that the network, I think, felt like I shouldn't do that Goodnight song and that I shouldn't wear the Mr. Nightgown thing. And I remember sort of early on in the early weeks, there was a push for me to not do the song and not do the nightgown. And I just was like, I don't know, man, that's the thing to me. Like if you watch the show and you get that, then you really get it. You really get what we're trying to do. So I was very firm about that one.
So is there a point where it became easier? Like over the course of it, was there a point where you felt like, yeah, I think I got this. I think I understand this.
I mean, it was definitely a journey. I feel like definitely, I feel like I got it. But the way that these kinds of shows work, truthfully, is that, I would have like 3 days where I felt like I got it, and then one show that was like a fucking mess and terrible, in my head, in my estimation, and then you kind of like start over. So, I feel like we definitely got more consistent in terms of the shows and the bits and the segments and things that were successful. Far outweighed the ones that were not successful in the last couple months. But really, like, we were only on the air. There's 104 episodes. So people are like, whoa, 104 episodes. But, we were doing 4 nights a week. We were only on the air for just over 6 months, which is in the lifespan of a television show, and especially a talk show and a late night talk show is, that's like a second. We were on, we had a second to try to figure it out. But yeah, I think that things really started to feel really good for me a couple months ago, 2.5 months ago, maybe. But it was always a little bit of a struggle in terms of, and also I think that maybe at that point the network had already like given up on us. So I think that kind of eased up for me the pressure, because I just wasn't hearing as many of the notes at that point. So I was able to kind of focus on what it was that I was doing.
So, and you bring up something interesting about like, the span of the show, and with talk shows sometimes needing to find their feet. Do you think that there's a double standard really for women in talk shows? Because it seems like, you go back to somebody, say, like Conan O'Brien, who certainly grew into his role as a talk show host. and late night still is predominantly a man's game. Do you think that there's?
It's not predominant. I mean, it is 99% a man's game. Currently, there's one woman, it's Samantha Bee, and she's got a show, and it's one night a week, and it's a show that is an incredibly important show. But she's it. That's all that's all we got. And then in the fall, oh my gosh, wait, why am I blanking on her name? That she's taking over.
She's taking over Carson Daly show.
Yeah, and blanking.
Yeah,
Lily Singh.
Yes.
Lily Singh. So she'll be taking over Carson Daly's show, at I think his show comes on. I think it's not his show, I guess her show. I think it's 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah, but why? So why is that? Why do you think that this is still a man's game? Why has it been so hard for women to break into this?
Well, because they historically speaking have never been given the shots, and I think that the men who have run the networks, and then the creative forces behind these shows have been, they all look the same and they all have the same anatomy. And I think that there was a real feeling. I mean, dude, how long ago was the article that pretty women can't be funny? Are women like, are you kidding me? Like, that was not that long ago. Was it Vanity? Who was it that had the big article that was like, can women be funny, or are women funny? And then, Julie Bowen won her Emmy 7 years ago, and there was that person that wrote the think piece about why pretty women can't really be funny. I mean, this kind of like sort of
Jerry Lewis said something to that effect.
Jerry
Lewis, before he had died, Jerry Lewis had said something about women, not being as funny as men.
Right. That's like, yes. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like that stuff, that idea, being sort of perpetrated onto the world, is not, that is still something that has been happening in the last 10 years, even, those articles and those people trying, I don't know when Jerry Lewis died, but so I think that I think that comes down to, again, when you talk about representation in media and on television, you look at the people who are making the decisions, who are writing the checks, who are greenlighting the shows. And if everyone in the room is a white man, you'd better believe that they're like, I don't understand that. I don't think that's funny. Well, it might not actually be funny to you, sir. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's for the other 50% of this country. And then some other men too. That was like one of the early reviews, I think. I didn't really read reviews, but there was an early review where it was a male reviewer who found my show baffling and made a mention of how frequently I talked about my period. And, my feeling was like, yes, to both of those things for you. And I didn't create this show for you. How does that feel? Does that feel weird that you're watching something that wasn't made with you in mind? It was made for someone else, a different type of person. That must be interesting when you're in the majority for so long and everything is made for you to see. It must be jarring to see something this isn't for me. Oh, I mean, like, fucking welcome to the rest of the world, like, anyway, so
welcome to Alabama.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. I think that, I think it's really unfortunate that idea has been so pervasive in comedy, that it's a thing that even, has to be discussed still. It's because it's, because it's exhausting, but also because, people like, so many incredible, amazing women since the advent of entertainment have proven that women are fucking hilarious and funny and have a voice and have something to say that is valid. Now, whether or not it like speaks to a certain person, you can't be responsible for that.
And so did it mean something special to you that you earned that Critics' Choice nomination for best host?
Yeah,
I
it was
mean,
wild.
what was that? How did that come about? How did you find out about it? What was your reaction?
Oh, well, I knew that that E was not going to continue with the show a few weeks before I announced it on my Instagram and on my Twitter. And it was a discussion between Tina Fey and our other producers about when the right time for me to announce it was going to be. And, I got to a point where I was like, we're coming up close to the upfronts. I really didn't particularly want the news of my show not returning to get swept up in all of the cancellation drama of all the other shows. Like, I've worked in this industry for 21 years. I'm well aware of how all of this time, how this all happens and how it all works. And even though it's sort of like rolling now with cable and stuff, but like, this is still, this pilot season thing, these major networks announcing what shows they're killing, what shows they're picking up. I just didn't want to get swept up into that, because I do think that there's a validity to the conversation of why was I not given more time? Why couldn't they figured out a way to keep it going? And so, yeah, so I just, made the decision on a Friday. I guess it was a few weeks ago now. And I sent out an email to the producerial team saying, I'm going to do it Sunday night. Game of Thrones is on. It'll probably get picked up by Monday morning. And I just wanted you guys to be aware, like, that's my plan. That's what I think is going to be the best thing for me and for my fans and for the show. And so I did the Instagram stories on Sunday night. I posted on my Instagram and on Twitter. And I just shut my phone off and went to bed. And then the next morning was walking into my workout and sort of looking at all the lovely things that people had already begun to say about the show not continuing on E. And I got a text from my old publicist, Carrie Bialik, who's now a manager in New York. And she was like, congratulations on the Critics' Choice Award. I can't believe the timing. How did you plan this? And I was like, what are you I didn't even know those were happening, or that it's a new thing. I didn't have any idea that it was a thing that was happening. And it just happened that the timing was perfect.
So you have been in this business for a long time, and the ups and downs of it. So what do you do after this? Has this ignited something that you want to carry forward into another type of project?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we still have discussions with some places about figuring out if there's a move for this show, for Busy Tonight, and what that would look like and what it would be. And I think that's I think it's worth seeing that through, for lots of reasons. But the biggest one is, like, I think like I said in the beginning of this, like, we succeeded. Like, we were incredibly successful. And I think you can look at sort of the press coverage that this show has had since the beginning. I mean, we really have, like, had more press pickup than I don't know. I mean, I can't think of another late night talk show that gets as much press pickup as we get from my show. And then beyond that, we've just really succeeded in our mission and so many of the things that we wanted to do. So I do feel like trying to find a new home for this show is something that's still worth exploring. And we had some, I mean, we were like, in the middle of production, like trying to juggle all of this stuff anyway. So we do have some meetings and things set up for next week, which is great. But then beyond that, sort of like in a more global sense in terms of entertainment and, what I've been a part of and what this has sort of ignited in me, I do feel moving forward that I have just a clearer idea of sort of what needs to happen, but also that, this industry is very much in a time of transition. And, I think that I think we need to figure out, how people consume media. And well, we kind of know how they're consuming media, right? On these computers, or their phones. But how you can like really track what people are seeing, and then how do we monetize that and make really great quality programming that we can make available to people on different platforms in different ways. Because I think, just anecdotally speaking, and I'm totally I have no argument with that my numbers were low, but I can just tell you my personal experience going to the mall in the last 4 months has been different than it was a year ago, and different than when I was on any other television show. People really feel like they're watching this show. And I would occasionally ask them, well, where do you watch it? And they either watch a YouTube clip or, oh, so-and-so posted your like a thing, so people were watching it in all these different ways. And obviously that's not trackable for whatever advertisers, I guess, that E is trying to do business with. But I do have to say, it should be like, we should be able to figure that out. It's a bunch of really smart people who do this. So, yeah, so there's that. And then I think, again, it's like more, even in all of these streaming services that are being launched, and different platforms that are being launched, I do still think we need to strive for more diversity on in the executive space, in the places where the people are making the decisions of what to put in front of us, because it's just true, people respond to what they relate to, and that's just the way it's always been. I don't know. And they need to, and in terms of like a late night talk show, if that's going to be a thing that continues, they really do need to give people more shots. I mean, a longer time to build an audience on a traditional platform, on cable or on TV. Because I think you just see with Michelle Wolf's show and Sarah Silverman's show and Robin Thede, there just they haven't allowed, especially women, I guess, in this space to really find their footing. They sort of like call it and they're like, see, we told you.
Well, we certainly hope that Busy Tonight finds a new home, and whatever happens, congratulations on the success of the show.
Thanks.
Because it was successful.
Yeah, I feel like it really was, and I'm super proud of it.
Good. Everybody log on to goldderby.com. Be sure you make your predictions for Emmys, Oscars, Tonys, Grammys, all the award show hullabaloo, and stay tuned to this channel for more interviews with the awards contenders this season. Busy, thank you so much.
Thanks. Gotta clean out